Ever since 207 got its start, we have been interviewing candidates running for major office in our state. June's primary is quickly approaching, and tonight we are joined by Ben Midgley, who is hoping to win the Republican nomination for governor. Thank you so much for being here. Good to see you.
Thank you for having me. Great to be here.
So you are among a handful of candidates running for governor who call themselves political outsiders. What is the number one thing you believe makes you qualified to be governor?
I think I'd break it into two parts. One is I grew up here. My wife grew up here. Our kids grew up here. All went to the same high school I did. One is still in high school. So Maine means a lot to us. It's built our character, if you would. And from the business standpoint, I have run billion-dollar companies. I've built them from scratch, created 15,000 jobs, so I have a strong handle on large organizational management, and I think that would, combined with my experience in Maine, and also I spent time on unemployment and food stamps, which I don't think anyone else in the race has, so I've experienced all aspects of the spectrum there. Prepares me in greater detail, I would say, than others running for the position.
If elected governor, you have said that you'd like to cut wasteful spending. Where would you make cuts first?
I've talked about spending in terms of just getting it right-sided, right? So the two largest expenses in the state are the Department of Health and Human Services and the Department of Education. And the biggest challenge we have in DHHS is Maine is borderline a welfare state right now. We have over 400,000 people receiving state benefits, and the average person is getting $40,000 in benefits, which is the average income in the state of Maine. So it's a large amount for those who are working to cover. We've got about 750,000 taxpayers, and like I said, 400,000 people on benefits. So what you have to do for these folks, and I've been on the system, right? So the benefits are very important for people. You don't want to just take them away, but you want to provide them an opportunity to get off of the system. Right? So you have to encourage growth in the economy. And then there's something called the cliff. I don't know if you've heard about that before, but if you make too much money, you're not allowed to have your benefits anymore. So folks get stuck in the system. So you have to create a bridge so they can earn more money and then start to pay into the system a little bit and work themselves off the system so they have opportunity to do better rather than being stuck on the system. And that's the way it works right now.
And with that, so where would the cuts come in?
Well, let me explain. So if you got the average welfare recipient, say in the state of Maine, down to about $25,000 in benefits, that would save $6 billion. $4 billion on the federal side, $2 billion on the state side, and that all goes back into taxpayers' pockets.
Okay, so cutting in the benefits area.
Yeah, not necessarily cutting, allowing people to get off. There's a big distinction there.
Housing is top of mind for a lot of people. Demand is there, stock is not. How would you make buying and owning a home in Maine more affordable?
Sure. Other than interest rates coming down rapidly, which would only make homes easier to finance, the only way you lower pricing is by volume. Okay, so what Maine has a challenge with is allowing builders to go and build at the pace that we need them to build. They just lost a large development project in Bangor for 300 units because it was too expensive and they couldn't get Boston rents. Portland, I'm sure you've seen, has missed their building targets because of their low-income penalties. If you don't build enough workforce housing, you get a $186,000 penalty per unit. So developers are walking away from that. So you have to have a multi-level strategy where builders of all types of homes in all price markets, all the way down to mobile homes in the sub $100,000 range, are allowed to build. So you reduce regulations. That saves 20 to 30% of the cost for builders, so they have a better chance of making profitability. You then have to speed up permitting in the Department of Environmental Protection, Department of Transportation, because a lot of builders are getting held up there. So you can create expedited permitting, allow for outside consultant review, get those permits through, get builders building more quickly. And with the PUC, you can work with CMP, Maine Water, Unitel, things like that to get the utilities you need into the developers' areas, and then they can grow much quicker.
The current administration has embraced alternative energies like wind power to help reduce costs, our carbon footprint. Would you continue that push, or do you see a better alternative?
Well, Maine has quite a bit of that right now, and it's neither reducing costs or, improving our situation for electricity pricing. So what happened is Maine subsidized all the solar projects that are in the state, okay? So they can't get to profitability without, for example, you subsidizing them and everyone who's watching this show. Maine ratepayers pay about $200 million a year to cover what's called the stranded cost in attaching these solar panels to the grid. Not a lot of people know about that. And then because of the subsidies that are in place for solar and wind, we're paying about 30 cents a kilowatt hour versus about 15 cents a kilowatt hour, which is the national average. So to me, solar and wind are fine. It's great, but you shouldn't be subsidizing that on the backs of ratepayers. They need to be competitive on their own. So if we get them back to that place, they can grow on their own, no problem. But right now, we need to get Mainers cost efficiency and real savings on their electricity bills.
When it comes to guns, are there any current laws in Maine that you would change or do away with completely?
I wasn't a supporter of the red flag law because the majority of law enforcement, almost all law enforcement, did not see that being a benefit to them. You have the yellow flag law, which the state obviously was getting much better at using. So I don't see that as a beneficial program for the state. I'd like to go with where law enforcement says we should go.
And you've, as we mentioned in the beginning here, you've never held political office. You've never had to work with politicians who don't agree with you. Would you be able to work with Democrats in Augusta and get things accomplished?
Sure. So one of the things I've done very, very well in my career, and like I said, I've run some big businesses, is build the right culture. So you always have to be willing to listen to folks and work to other folks, and you have to go with the best ideas in the room. Previously, I actually have been a Democrat. My mother brought me into the town hall at 18 and said, sign this, you're a Democrat. So I was a Democrat for 20 plus years before I switched to being a Republican. So I have a very good understanding of both sides of that. And the goal is to get essentially more back to the middle. You know, right now you've got essentially a fractured country. You've got a fractured state. People are very diametric in their views, and there's a lot more people in the middle than I think people believe there are. And if you get those folks, talking a little bit more effectively, you can have, a lot of great solutions for the majority of people in the state.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Ben Midgley,
okay.
Thank you so much for your
Thanks for having
time. If you would like to learn more about Ben, his campaign for governor, you can head right to our website and app. We'll have a link for you, and stay with us. 207 is back right after this.